Hey, I am Andrea Shipke, and I am a 4th grade math and science teacher at Laurel Magnet School of the Arts, and we are a part of the Whole Schools program. So today we're going to be working with fractions, but we're also going to be making some art. So I have a list of materials down here on the table that you'll probably want to gather from home. One of the materials that you will need is paper, a ruler, a black crayon, watercolor, and a paintbrush. Now I'm going to be using watercolor and a paintbrush today. If you do not have those materials, it is no big deal. You can just use crayons. You can also use graph paper if you have it, but if you don't, I'm going to show you really quickly how to make graph paper. So I have a ruler, and I'm just going to line it up with my paper, and I'm going to draw a line going down or up. And you can see the width of my ruler. You'll need to do this several times in order to make the graph paper, and you'll start to create a grid. Okay, once you go all the way across the paper, and you see a bunch of parallel lines right there, you can turn your paper, your ruler a different way, and you can also create the lines going across. Let me turn my paper this way. It may make it a little bit easier for you to see. And you can go all the way across here, and you can start to see the grid. And now you have perpendicular lines. Once you do this all the way, then you will have your graph paper for us to use today. So have your materials ready, and we'll go ahead and get started on our art with fractions. I have the standard written right over here that I'm going to read to you that's got some really important words on what we're going to be doing with fractions today. So it's 4.NF.3.c, and it's add and subtract mixed numbers with like denominators by replacing each mixed number with an equivalent fraction and or by using properties of operations and the relationship between addition and subtraction. So we've got a lot going on with us today with that standard. Now, there are some vocabulary words I want to make sure that you know. The first one is equivalent fraction, and you probably remember that word from 3rd grade. An equivalent fraction is a fraction that has different numbers, different denominators, and different numerators, but the value is the same. So you can see in my visual model right here, I have 1/4 and 2/8, but the red sections are the same because they're equivalent, and so is the white section. And in 4th grade, I know that you know how to do that by either multiplying and dividing. Right here, I actually multiplied 1 times 2 and got 2, and 4 times 2 to get 8. And that's an equivalent fraction. That's going to be super important for us today. We also have a mixed number. A mixed number is a whole number and a fraction. So you read this number by saying 2 and 4/6, and on the number line, this number is found between the whole number 2 and working its way to 3. So that is a mixed number. Our third vocabulary word today is improper fraction. Now, you may look at this improper fraction and you say, whoa, Ms. Shipke, this looks a little strange, and it does. It's because this is a fraction that has the value greater than 1. And I know this because my denominator is 6. So the value of 1 here would be 6/6, and 16 is much larger than 6/6. So an improper fraction. And then the last word that I have for you today is decompose. And the word decompose just means to break down. And I know you've used that word a lot in math, to break down numbers. Okay, I want you to look back at me, and I want you to see this apple that I have in my hand. And I want you to tell me what color you see in my apple. Did you say red? If you did, then you are correct. Did someone think maybe green? You're correct too. Did anybody happen to think, well, there's also that golden yellow apple? And if you did, you're correct too, and that's exactly right. All those colors can be right. Now, if you're like, I don't see an apple at all, just hold on and I'll explain what I'm talking about in a few minutes. Now, what we're going to be working with today on these fractions is kind of like our apple. You may immediately see a green apple first, and you're like, yes, I saw that green apple, but someone else may see a red apple. And I'm not saying they're wrong, there just may be another way to look at that number that you're not accustomed to, okay? So are you ready to make some art in a few seconds? Awesome. Okay. So I have the mixed number right here on the table that is 2 and 2/4, okay? So I'm just going to illustrate for you real quickly what 2 and 2/4 has, and I have some Unifix cubes here. So I know that my whole is going to be 4/4. Now, you probably remember me saying a while ago that 4/4 is going to equal a whole. So 4/4 equals 1 whole. So I'm going to take my Unifix cubes and just pull off 4. I don't know if you can see them, so I'm going to tear them apart real quickly. And this equals 1 whole. And I know I'm working with fourths because my denominator right here is a fourth. So 4/4 equals 1 whole. But my mixed number right here says 2. So I need to do another 4/4. So let me pull off 4 Unifix cubes again. And now I have 4/4, which equals another whole. So I have decomposed my fraction to have the same value as my whole number of 2. Now I have my fraction that I have to work on because this mixed number is between the value of 2 and 3 on the number line. So I think my 2/4, I'm going to decide to decompose that a little bit more. So I'm going to put a plus sign. I think I'm going to go back and put a plus sign right here too. And I'm going to put 1/4 and then another 1/4 because I know that 1/4 plus 1/4 is going to give me my 2/4. So on my cubes, there is my 1/4 and then there is my second 1/4. So you can see right here I have an illustration of the mixed number 2 and 2/4 using my Unifix cubes, and all I did was decompose my fraction. Do you have your art supplies ready? Awesome. Okay, I've kind of already started because I wanted you to see what I have going on here. And the style of art that we're going to be using today is right here, and it's kind of a color blocking. This is by Mondrian. He was very famous for using this style of art, and I want you to notice these colors. You'll see a lot of red and blue and yellow and white with black lines. And in a little bit, I want you to look behind me when we go back, and you'll see those colors behind me because this was the style of art that he used. Now, looking at my Unifix cubes right here, and looking at the art that I've already started, I hope you see a resemblance. Do you see my 4/4 on my graph paper? I bet you do. Now on this 4/4 to equal my another one, I've decided to make it more this type of quadrilateral, more of a square than a rectangle, but it's still the same value. It doesn't have to be written as this type of quadrilateral. The square quadrilateral is completely fine. The value's the same. And then for my 1/4 and my second 1/4, you'll see 1/4 and 1/4. So right here, I'm going to call this a red apple. I see 2 and 2/4. Do you see what I'm calling the red apple? 2 and 2/4. Now, what if I told you that if you said, I see another number that has the same value, but it looks completely different? This is going to be considered maybe the green or yellow apple. So if you look at where I decomposed my fractions just a second ago, I know you know how to add fractions, so I'm going to add them together. 4 plus 4 is 8, 9, 10, and then the denominator is 4. And I want you to see over here on the art that I've already started, if you see 10/4 once I decompose them. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, 7/4, 8/4, 9/4, 10/4. There is where I have an improper fraction. So originally we saw our mixed numbers, 2 and 2/4, but if you counted these fourths individually, you would have gotten 10/4, another color apple. You got it? Okay, I'm going to put my Unifix cubes to the side and let's go ahead and get started. Now, if you don't have any paint, watercolor or any type of paint, that is no big deal. You can definitely do this with crayons or markers. I'm just choosing to use watercolor today. Okay, so I have the mixed number 3 and 1/4. So again, on the number line, this is between the whole number 3 and 4. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to practice decomposing it. So to mean 1, because my denominator is 4s, I'm going to write 4/4, which equals 1 whole number. Now I've got to do for the number 2. So 4/4, which equals a second whole number. And for my final whole number, I'm going to write 4/4, and I'm going to put my plus sign so these numbers have the same value as my whole number 3. But I also have to remember my fraction, which is 1/4. Now I've decomposed it. So as we make our art, I'm going to need 3 whole numbers and 1 piece. Now we're going to be using a black crayon today, and we're going to be creating a barrier on here. And this is a wax resist. It's going to keep our watercolor on the inside or keep our marker and crayon to make it pop out and look a little neater. So I'm going to make 4/4, and you can go anywhere you want to on your paper. I think I'm going to do mine right here. Now make sure you block in 4 cubes on your graph paper. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4/4 equals 1 whole. I think this looks like a good location for my second one. And make sure you color it in really dark so that barrier holds that watercolor or whatever other material you're using. 4/4 equals 1 whole. And now I've got to create another 4/4, which would be my final for my 3. I think this looks like a really good spot. And you can put them anywhere. Now notice I also did a square quadrilateral and a rectangle, and different shapes are fine, but I do suggest keeping your 4/4 together so we can clearly see that red apple. Okay, now I need to worry with my fraction, which is 1/4, and I'm just going to find a spot where I really want to create for my red coloring on here so it can look more like Mondrian's. Okay, and I have my watercolor, and if you've ever used watercolor, it's super fun, but you're going to have to make sure you have a lot of water in your paint, and you can buy this watercolor anywhere. Okay, and you're just going to paint those whole numbers red. I love watercolor because of the value. When you paint, you're going to see dark to light color values. And that's what I love about it the most. It's kind of like our numbers. They have different values, and they can be written different ways. So go ahead and just fill in your color. So I already have 1 whole number 4/4 done, and now I'm working on my second one. Okay. Markers would probably look pretty good on this too. But we do need to stay within his color pattern if we're wanting to replicate his work with the coloring block. Okay. I love the dark to light shades on the red. Okay, almost done. And now my little fraction that makes him go over 3 and working his way towards the next number on the number line. Okay, see if you see my mixed number, what we could consider, I guess we could call this our red apple since it's the color red. I see 4/4, which is a whole, 4/4, which is a whole, 4/4, which is a whole, so that's 1, 2, 3, and 1/4. Now remember, there's another way that we could say this, which is our improper fraction. And that's because we've decomposed our fraction. So I'm going to add over here on the side. 4 plus 4 is 8, plus 4 more is 12, plus 1 would give me 13, and our denominator of 4. So we have 13/4, which is our improper fraction. Now I tell my 4th graders all the time, we can go from a mixed number to an improper fraction back and forth. That red apple, green apple, red apple, green apple. I mean, technically I wasn't even holding an apple. So here's how we say this. mixed to improper, improper to mixed, mixed to improper, improper to mixed. It's both color apples. So let's see if we see 13/4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4/4. 5/4, 6/4, 7/4, 8/4, 9/4, 10/4, 11/4, 12/4, 13/4. I see our green apple, but I bet some of you also still see 3 1/4. Excellent. Okay, now remember, Mondrian had a couple of colors. He had the blue, he has the red, but he also used yellow. So we're going to go ahead and create our yellow piece so we can replicate him with his color blocking. And we're going to need to decompose. Do you remember what kind of number this is? A mixed number, that's right. We need to decompose him so we can make our improper fraction. So 1, how could we decompose or rewrite 1 to make it look like a fraction? Here's a hint. That's right, 4/4, 4/4. I'm going to go ahead and put my plus sign, and I'm going to break apart my 3/4. I just think for the art-wise, it's going to look a lot better if I separate those numbers. So 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4, that is a unit fraction. You may remember that word from 3rd grade, that unit fraction when I'm decomposing it. Okay, and let's go ahead and let's start with our yellow. I need a 4/4, which is equal to 1 whole. I think I'm going to come down here on the bottom and find my 4/4. I have a really good spot right here. Now, as you do it, make sure you're creating that barrier. It's kind of like going around the perimeter. You may remember that word too. So you can create your number to help hold it in. I need a 1/4. Let me just find me a space. This looks like a really good spot for my 1/4. I need a second 1/4. Let's see. I think I'm going to put a little bit of yellow over here would look nice. And then my final 1/4. I think over here would also look like a nice little area, and I've got to make sure that barrier is tight around the perimeter. Okay, now I'm going to put the water in my yellow to make it come alive, and I'm going to start painting. Now remember, keep your 4/4 together. I think it's easier on our eyes when we see that fraction 4/4 to automatically know that that is our whole number. And I hope the yellow is coming through on the screen. Sometimes yellow is a faint color and it's hard to see it. But it's a beautiful color, like a beautiful day. And now I'm on my second 1/4. And then I have one more. I bet you'll never think of quadrilaterals the same now, or maybe apples. Okay. And there we go. Let's look and see if we see our mixed number. 1, because of the 4/4, and 3/4, right there. So I see 1 3/4. We could call this the golden apple for sure. Now let's see if we have got it decomposed into our improper fraction and that we can find it. Let's see. 4 plus 1 is 5, 6, 7. And the denominator of 4s, 7/4. Okay, you ready to count? 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, 7/4. We found maybe the green apple that time. And remember, you can go from mixed to improper, improper to mixed. Awesome. Okay, one more last thing that we need to do to look more like Mondrian. He had a bunch of black lines running in different directions, making perpendicular lines. Perpendicular makes a perfect L. That is such a good word for 4th graders. So you can just kind of connect some lines back and forth for those perpendicular lines. Don't put too many, just put enough on there to make it look more like our inspiration part. Okay? Awesome. Okay, now, you may be asking, okay, Ms. Shipke, that was fun. I see it. I see the green apple. I see the red apple. I can go from Mixed to improper, improper to mixed. Y'all see my apples now? Okay, but why? Why do I need to know this? What's the purpose? I can see it when I visually create my art, but why do I need to know it? Well, guys, it's right here. Have you ever subtracted with fractions? Have you? Okay, well, here's an example of a very super easy one, okay? We've got a mixed number minus a mixed number, and we say 3 minus 1 is 2. Our denominators are the same in 4th grade, so it's a 4, and 2 minus 1 is 1. The answer is 1 2/4, no big deal. But here's where this artwork really is important. It's all right here. Do you remember on our art when we created 3 and 1/4? Do you remember that? And we decomposed the fraction right here and we got 13/4. This is where this comes in handy, because right here on this subtraction problem, can you say 1 minus 3? You can't. That's when you have to regroup. And when you regroup, all you do is you go from mixed to improper, improper to mixed. So when we did this, we decomposed that fraction to make the same value to an improper fraction and got 13/4. Then we took this number, 1 3/4, we decomposed it to the same value and got 7/4. And now we can subtract, because 13 minus 7 is 6 with a denominator of 4, so our answer is 6/4. All we did was regroup by going from mixed to improper, improper to mixed. Now, this is your improper fraction. I'll tell you right now, if you were in my classroom, I wouldn't let you leave it as the green apple. I would want you to show me, can you switch it back to a right apple? So we took out our 4/4. You would be left with 2/4. And then if you added together, 4/4 equals 1 whole. And 2/4, you bring it over. So here we go, our mixed number, our improper fraction, and you just went from mixed to improper, improper to mixed by subtracting with fractions. So today, I hope that the next time you see a number, you see that it can have a different value than you immediately think. That's the red apple. You may next time see that you also have a green apple. I hope that you can find a mixed number on here and an improper fraction. And I hope that now when you get to subtracting with fractions, if you have to regroup, you immediately think, let me decompose it to find the same value and then I can subtract, okay? Until next time, guys, see you later.